This episode of In Focus is being made possible through the support of the Wayne County government.
Last year, I completed a marathon. When I had COVID this year, I couldn't even play the acoustic guitar. And that really concerned me, and that really made it hit home for me. If somebody like myself, who I would say was generally healthy, can get knocked down that far by COVID-19, the people who could have severe symptoms, I couldn't imagine how that could impact their body.
Hi, welcome to this week's In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. This year has been strange, odd, unprecedented, pick your word, maddening, frustrating. It's been interesting, I'll say that. We've never done a best of In Focus program. We've always tried to have conversations all the way through the end of the year. This year, things didn't work out the way we wanted. I think everybody can say that. So we are going to take a look back. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to bring you parts of some of the conversations that we've had a chance to have during this past year. You'll see at the very beginning of this show, we actually started in the studio. I was dressed. My dresser was still handling me. I had a shirt and tie and my vest on. And now we get to this where I'm sitting here in blue jeans and there are no TV towers around me. It's been changing. It's been different. Hopefully by the time we get to the end of 2021, you'll see an In Focus that you're used to. Thursday evening, 6 p.m., something live and interactive where you get to ask the questions of our guests. But let's take a couple weeks as we come to the end of 2020, take a look back at some of the conversations that we've had, some of the people we've had a chance to talk to. I hope that you have a Merry Christmas, a very Happy New Year, and I look forward to many In Focus programs with you in 2021. Turning to our guest, a little over a year ago now, we had a chance to speak to this gentleman on In Focus, and we want to kind of reconnect with him and this time connect with some of the staff to talk about what they're doing. Mike Rao, who's president and CEO of Eastern Indiana Works, thanks for coming back.
Thank you, Eric.
Didn't scare you away, huh?
Not at all, not at all.
Okay. Workforce development, that can mean a couple of things to a couple of different people. When you hear that term, what comes to your mind?
What comes to mind for me is helping each respective community leverage their unique assets and resources to position those communities for success in workforce. So as everyone knows from an economic growth standpoint, workforce is the primary concern in the world. So we assist our individual communities, all 9 of them, all 9 counties in our Eastern Indiana region, with positioning their respective communities by leveraging their unique resources, because each community is unique, and leverage those resources so that they can compete from a workforce standpoint in the ultra-competitive global economy.
It has been talked about by everybody, from the local level through the state level, with the governor, with his next level jobs, trying to get people the skills, the certificates, the training. There are 12 workforce development boards throughout this state. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct.
You all are one of them, Region 6, which covers 9 counties running from Jay County up north.
Blackford
County.
Yes.
Down to Fayette, Union, Rush. What is it that you all are required to do, and how did it come about? Where do you get your mandate from?
Sure. We get our mandate from a federal law called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act of 2014. So the federal mandate grants money, workforce development money through the Department of Labor to each individual state based on employment levels. So Indiana, the state of Indiana, receives a certain amount of workforce development funding. And then they have an agency called the Department of Workforce Development that serves as a pass-through agency to each of the 12 regional workforce development boards. So there is a firewall, to say, between the state of Indiana and each workforce development board, each of the 12 boards, in order for each unique region to cultivate high-level strategies that meet the unique needs of those regions. So Congress, I've been a longtime critic of many things that come out of Congress, and who isn't, but Congress was wise in providing this option for states and for regions, because we can meet the unique needs at a ground level, the unique needs of the employers, the job seekers, the elected officials, the private and public sectors at the ground level, because we are here and we live with each of those individuals at the ground level.
For those that aren't familiar with Eastern Indiana Works, Work One would be part of what falls in underneath you, and that's the name I think that most people realize. But you and your team have really been spending the last couple of years trying to make it just not about being unemployed, but make it about being employed. Is that correct?
That is correct, Eric. And yes, Work One is one aspect of what Eastern Indiana Works does. The objective of our board was to project a brand, Eastern Indiana Works, that resonates the value of work to the population in the region, the state, the nation, and the world. So that was a key core strategy of our board, to shift the way people think about what we do, to go from an unemployment office to a full employment office. And so Work One is one of the things we do. We do many other things, like such as addiction to employment transitions, a lot of different work experience. We do employer engagement. You'll meet many of the individuals later in this show.
We've had a chance to work with you more since our conversation. It was last December, I think we had a chance to talk. We have worked with you, started a program called Eastern Indiana Works, got to make it real easy to find. Talk about the changes that you all have made. There were offices that maybe are closed. You all have worked on being a bit more mobile. How did you decide on some of the strategies that you all have followed in the last year or so?
Sure. Well, we listened first and foremost to the people we're trying to serve. And in talking to those individuals, asking, why are you not coming to the office? Many of them do not want to go to a government office, which we are not government, by the way, but that's how we were perceived as Work One. So the changing to Eastern Indiana Works allowed us to also at the same time implement our mobile strategy, along with a cross-functional strategy internally in the corporate structure. So we wanted to become more fluid, connect at a higher level with individuals, and at a very personal level with individuals. So to do that, we had to go where the people are. So we have shifted. Our main offices are in Muncie, Newcastle, which is co-located with the Newcastle Public Library, Fayette County, and we have a Rush to Work office in Rushville, as well as the Richmond office, which we co-locate with the Excel Center.
You all don't work in a silo, though. This is a public-private partnership. The board that makes up Eastern Indiana Works. Talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people have said, you know, if the government could ever get together with the private sector, we could solve some issues.
Yes.
that's where you all are.
Yes, and again, I point to the wisdom of the Congress, the U.S. Congress, when they passed the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It is mandated that that take place. So 51% of our board must, by law, be from the private sector. And then we have 20% needs to be labor, representatives of labor. There needs to be a portion of the board that's represented by public education and post-secondary education, and then the not-for-profit sector, and then the chief local elected officials, the mayors and commissioners of our region are represented on our board as well.
As you have gone through this, you found challenges, I'll say, in this region. One of them being the opioid crisis, which we're still hearing about. Not as many deaths, thank goodness, from that, but it's still affecting people and has affected the number of people that can work. How have you all tried to answer that?
We have, once again, taken to the streets to listen. We need to discern what is leading people to addictions. Oftentimes we found that it is a very high level of hopelessness, maybe also known as nihilism, in the Latin. I say that for my colleagues at work because they enjoy that. But the hopelessness that sets in, and the hopelessness is fueled by the lack of interaction that oftentimes takes place in the workplace. So we're trying to make that connection both philosophically and create the imagery in people's minds that work adds unique value to the human experience, that you will be a better person and you'll be happier and more fulfilled if you work. So making that case, but also dealing with the chemical dependency issue through the various partners we have in that sector. So we don't want to leave any stone unturned in dealing with addictions. We understand that it shifts from opioids to other drugs very quickly. We understand that we're on 70, which is a conduit for Chinese-funded drugs from Mexico. We understand all that. But we're up to the challenge, and we want to give people hope first and foremost, and then give them what they need at a personal level.
I am very pleased to have Mike Dunlap, who is the president and CEO of Merchants Bank, here with me. Thank you very much for coming over and talking with us.
Oh, well, thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start with who you are, since the entity is new to Richmond, but not completely new to the area. A little bit of background on yourself.
Well, I'm currently the president and CEO of Merchants Bank of Indiana, and we're a publicly traded $6.5 billion asset bank that's headquartered in Carmel, Indiana. My background started, I went to Indiana University.
You'll win some friends here.
You do, right? Go Hoosiers. But I graduated, I was in public accounting. I started with KPMG, and that was a great career because it allowed me to figure out what industries I liked and what I felt I was good at. And so I left there, and that's how I got into banking, because it really appealed to me. And so really for the last 25 plus years, I've been in various banks. I've been in big banks, small banks. And for over the last 10, I've been here at Merchants, and I've watched us grow significantly over the past few years. So it's been really exciting for me.
Tell us a little bit more about Merchants Bank, the company.
Sure.
Because you've just moved in, and we'll talk about your branch here and some of the folks you've got, but people may not be familiar with the company itself. What can you tell us besides the fact that it is publicly traded?
Well, Merchants Bank really dates back in the Indianapolis market a long time, and our two founders, Mike Petrie and Randy Rogers, had worked for Merchants, and they loved it. They set out to start their own company together in 1990, and they did that with a focus on providing affordable housing for people, apartment lending. So they did that, and then really we got our roots coming over here to this market in 2002. because they had done lending, but they weren't part of a bank. And so they came over here in 2002 and acquired Greens Fork Township State Bank. And it had $6 million of assets. And they came over and they promised the community that they would commit to it, they would invest in the community, we're here to stay. And so here we are almost 20 years later, and we've gone from 6 million to 6.5 billion.
Wow.
So it's been a great run, and we've been able to serve this market well with our products and services. And it really, for us, it comes down to our people. We think of ourselves as a family company. And that really starts with our two founders, and they drive that culture all the way through our organization. And the people we've had over here have been wonderful for us, and we've grown it significantly. And so this market to us is critical, for our success.
This is a multi-state operation. This is
Sure.
not just, the name is Merchants Bank of Indiana,
Sure.
but it goes beyond these borders, correct?
It does, absolutely. We're in New York, Minneapolis, Clearwater, Florida, Chicago, Milwaukee. So we have about 15 sites across the country, but really our roots always come back to Indiana. We're Merchants Bank of Indiana for a reason. Yeah.
Talk about the difference between something large, and you mentioned some large
Sure.
communities there, and something the size of Richmond or smaller, where you all have
Sure.
an operation.
Sure.
What's different between the large towns and something this size?
Well, I just think when you get to a town this size, it really comes down to relationships. And in a sense, that's consistent no matter what place you're in. But when you're in a local community, it just feels deeper. And you find people that have been in the community for a very long time, and they understand. And when they can work with people that have been in the community a long time, they appreciate that. And so for me, when we're in smaller markets, it just has more of a sense of home, a sense of family, a sense of togetherness, relationship, things like that. And that's really, I think, what makes it so rewarding to be in communities like this one.
Talk about the decision to move into downtown Richmond.
Sure.
I'm sure that you all kind
Sure.
of scouted this area.
Sure.
You realized that there are empty branches, and you went into one. You didn't have to
did.
build from the ground up.
Right.
Right around you, there are places where banks in downtown Richmond have moved out.
Yes.
While some are moving out, you're moving in.
Correct.
What was the reasoning behind coming to Richmond in general?
Sure.
And moving into the downtown area specifically?
Sure. Well, as I said, we started here in 2002, and we had branches in Lynn and Spartanburg. But what we found difficult was to reach people in a downtown. And with a downtown, you're just going to get a certain set of people. People can get to you easier, everything like that. So for years, we have been thinking about how do we get to downtown? And for us to take over an existing beautiful branch bank building, we loved that. And this one was great because not only did it have a branch, but it had an upstairs, because not only do we have branches here, but we house our banking operations here. And that's simply because of the people that work for us. They've done a great job. We love having them work here. They love working here. We're a best place to work. We've done that 5 years in a row. We've submitted for that survey, and we've won 5 years in a row.
Wow.
So they enjoyed working here, and you're just going to get to more people, and they can get to you because we're in that downtown area. So it's exciting for us, and we're known for somewhat going against the grain, as opposed to other banks that may be exiting these type of markets, then we're heading in. So
What do you bring to this market that we may not have already, or that you feel Merchants Bank of Indiana can add to this area?
Well, certainly, a bank, we're going to be able to, we have lending products and we have deposit products. And so lending for us, Scott Evans and his team have done a great job with our ag lending in this market. And we've been doing that for a very long time.
And ag in this area obviously is very big business.
Huge. Right. Now, going downtown, we think there's a lot of opportunity with small businesses. We have a small business administration lending program that can help those businesses get started. things like that. So that really is appealing to us. Mortgages, we've always done mortgage, but we, again, you want to be able to reach more people in the community, and we're able to do that. We can do a fully electronic mortgage. So imagine closing your mortgage on an iPad. There's things like that we can bring there. And then our model is one that we don't have a lot of branches, and what we do is we take the savings we would have from building all those branches and we put it into our rates. So our deposit rates, our money market and our CD rates, and we don't charge fees. We're consumers
charge
too.
fees.
We don't charge as many fees.
Okay.
I should say it that way. I don't charge any. I shouldn't have said that. But we're a lot less. We feel like we're simple and easy to do business with.
Okay.
You can do business with. We have all the technology in the world, but then we also have the in-person. And so whatever your preference is, we can serve you.
You've mentioned you've been in banking for a period of time.
Sure.
And you've seen the changes.
Yes.
You keep talking about the people, the interaction,
Yes.
the relationships.
Yes.
And we do have banks here that do that. But
Yes.
a lot of the larger ones really seem to be, and the trend in banking over a number of years really seems to be more about that electronic, not so
Yes.
much about that relationship building.
Right.
It's more about you can do more things online, you can do more things on your iPad, and you have that, but
Right.
you still are talking about that relationship.
Yes.
How do you balance those two? Because part of
Sure.
it is very much about profits.
Sure.
And people are
Sure.
always an expense in a business.
Sure. Well, it really does come from our founders and the culture they set forth. They simply wanted a place where our people could come, make a great living, and have a life outside of work. And so the relationship part starts with our employees, and then it expands out to customers, and then it certainly goes into the community. And then certainly you need to make a return for our shareholder, but where we're different is it all starts with that relationship, and we have not been all things to all people. You can't come into our bank like you could a big bank and get anything you would want. We do what we really know, what we're good at, and we're very select. We're not everywhere across the country. So we can afford to we have a unique model that we are in certain markets, and when we are in that market, we are in the market. We are invested in the market, invested in the community, we get the people there and develop the relationships. But we don't have to worry about serving hundreds of markets where as a big bank, you're more focused on the cost and that kind of thing, and how do you make it different? I don't know that you really do. You kind of have to make everything somewhat consistent to be effective as a larger institution, whereas we still have that community bank feel to us, and that's how we operate in the local communities.
Hi, welcome to this edition of In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television. This week, we were supposed to be starting our In Focus candidate forums along with our partners, the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce and Hometown Media Group. Obviously, we're experiencing, like you're experiencing, a lot of changes, a lot of programs being canceled, and our lives are being disrupted. We have been asked by Indiana University as a whole to discourage visitors coming to campus. So we have canceled our In Focus candidate forums. Our hope is that we can find some way of being able to present that information to you and let you hear from the candidates in contested races before the primary election takes place. I can't promise you that, but we will do what we can in coordination with our partners and the schedule of the candidates that are on the ballot. We do still ask you to register to vote. I know a lot of people are asking you to stay home. One of the best things about that is you can get registered to vote easily by going online, indianavoters.com. You can easily check your registration. You can find out where polling places will be, and if you're not registered to vote, you can get registered to vote. As far as we know, voting will still take place. We talk about disruptions and things that are going to be changing. One of the things that we have always mentioned is our 21 for Fun, our casino night event that this will be the 7th year of. That is scheduled, or was scheduled actually, to happen on Friday, April 17th at the Elks Lodge. That has been postponed. We do not have a rescheduled date, but as soon as we do, we will be sure to pass that on. Whitewater Community Television's charge is to try to provide information and entertainment to the community on a local level. We will continue to try to do that to the best of our ability, while also listening to the healthcare professionals and being as safe with our staff as we possibly can. For tonight's show, since we cannot do a live In Focus candidate forum, we're going to start by going back to a conversation we had a little over a week ago. We think you should probably, if you didn't see that show, hear from our healthcare professionals. Wayne County Health Department has a new executive director, Christine Stevenson. We also have a new public health officer, Dr. David Jetmore. We had a nice conversation with them, so let's start our In Focus there. Welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We've added a chair and changed out the people in them. We're going to have a great conversation about public health and Wayne County's health department. We have with us Dr. David Jetmore, who is Wayne County's public health officer. Am I right with that?
That's right.
Okay. And Christine Stevenson, who is the executive director of the health department.
That's right.
Dr. Jetmore has been in the area for quite a while, 78, I think you said?
Yeah, 77.
77.
I showed up and never left.
That happens to some of us.
Yeah. Well, that's a wonderful place to live.
Actually, yes. I was supposed to be here 2 years, and that was 30 plus years ago. So yes, it does happen. So you have something to look forward to.
I'm not new to East Central Indiana.
Okay.
I'm from East Central Indiana and then ventured to Northern Indiana for a few years, and the northern winds blew me back down, and I've landed in Wayne County.
How long have you been in public health?
I've been in public health. I know that I look like I'm straight out of college, but I've been in it over 20 years.
Okay. What drew you to public health? I'm curious.
It's a really long story, but it was actually Robert Kennedy Jr. I went to hear him when I was in college. He spoke about cleaning up the Hudson River, and at that time I was in nursing school. And I was so inspired by one man being able to clean up our environment that I finished that semester in nursing and went straight into public health at Ball State and never looked back. Never regretted a day of it. I truly am a public health practitioner, and I believe in what we do in public health.
Talk about, then, let's follow that up with, what is public health? What does that cover? What is the government, in this case Wayne County, and in your position, responsible for dealing with?
Dr. Jetmore, you want to take
Well,
that? Or?
You know, public health is, as the name implies, health for the general public. And I spent 40 years as a surgeon and never thought about public health. I wasn't interested in preventing disease. I was, but my main focus was my patients already had disease, and it was simply a matter of finding it and surgically removing it. But if you think about it, Eric, if you go into a restaurant and order a meal, you don't worry about getting food poisoning because somebody ensured that you wouldn't. Somebody inspected those kitchens, inspected that restaurant. If you go somewhere and drink water, you don't worry about getting typhoid or cholera because somebody made sure that there wasn't a septic system built next to the well, or that the water that you're coming from the reservoir is being tested. Mm-hmm. Sometimes public health gets so good at what we do that we forget that it even exists. We're concerned with infectious disease, AIDS, sexually transmitted diseases, and do everything we can to eradicate and control these diseases to once again protect the public. What have I forgotten, Christine?
Well, public health touches just about every aspect of everyday life. And so when you look around, you'll forget that that's public health. Our sanitary sewers, that's public health. Our trash pickup, that's public health. Sanitary landfills, public health. Drinking water wells, public health. Restaurants, public health. Immunization programs, that's public health. So public health really touches just about every aspect of your life today. And I talk about public health in the way of, when we look at living in the United States, and what are some of the things that make it great to live in the United States? Well, definitely our judicial system. That's one of the best in the world, but also our public health laws. The laws and the sanitation codes that we have also make it a great place to live in. No one wants to live in a community where our waters are fouled by human waste, and that's what public health does. We protect our groundwater, we protect our surface water, and we protect our drinking water.
Okay. We've been hearing for, it seems like a couple of years now, although it may not be that long, that there is this separation that is coming between what is now the health clinic and the Wayne County Health Department. They were two pieces. Now they're being split apart. You two are coming in just as that split is taking place. Can you talk to us about where you are in that process and what's coming forward and what people will see that is different?
Sure. You want me to take that?
Yeah, you take it.
Well, they've been under the same administrative umbrella
Right.
for several years, and it's been the Wayne County Clinic and the Wayne County Health Department. And I believe the community as a whole has kind of lumped them together and felt like they were together. They've always been very separate. And now we're just, as the clinic expands, and so they can add more services to the community, the health department's going to pull out and move to a different location and take all of our services to that location. Nothing really changes other than the address. We'll still be offering the same exact services that we did under the same umbrella with the Wayne County Clinic, which includes the childhood immunization program, our STD programs, and things like that. Flu vaccines, the flu crew, all of that comes with the health department over to our new place, which is going to be at 100 South 5th Street.
Okay, right there in the corner of 5th and A, right across from the fire department.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
It's going to get noisy in there sometimes, isn't it?
I hope so. I like a hustle and bustle of a big town.
Hi, I'm Mayor Dave Snow.
And I'm Commissioner Ken Poust.
And I'm Angie Dickman with Reed Health, and we're all here to implore you to wear your masks, especially through this holiday season. At Reed, we really don't want you to come visit us or anybody in your family, so please wear your masks. That's the best way to stay healthy.
And Wayne County, in working with the city of Richmond, is very happy to provide the masks. We have over 150,000 masks here today. We hope to give every one of them out, and then we'll have some more to give out into the spring. Right, Dave?
That's right. We want to keep our economy flowing. We want to keep our businesses open, and we want to keep you healthy and safe. So please wear your mask, socially distance, and stay healthy through 2021. Let's have a better year next year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And welcome to In Focus on WGTV Channel 11. We have a chance to speak with Brenda McLean, co-owner of Hometown Media Group, which encompasses the Nettle Creek Gazette and the Western Wayne News. Thanks for taking some time and speaking with me. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, this is a great opportunity.
Let's kind of go back to the beginning of this and let me ask you a question. Were you always interested in owning a newspaper?
We were never interested in owning a newspaper. It's my husband and I. Actually, I'm co-owner with him, and he's not here today. But no, we had always, my mother started both papers, different years, and we had always told her, please, sell the papers, figure out some kind of a succession plan that doesn't include us because we're not interested in inheriting or taking that over. So, and I have a sister who is still living, a brother who's deceased, but I knew that she wasn't either. So, but that didn't happen. My mom did not sell them, and she was still in it at 79 years old. So I look at it as kind of a God thing. We thought we had a plan. We knew where we wanted to live, where we wanted to retire, where we were going to be. And, when you lay those plans out, sometimes you get a message that, hey, you're not in control here. So we ended up back here. So, and it's been a good experience.
Right. You're making you've been making changes, I think, from the beginning of this, and you've owned them for about 2.5 years now, I think.
Right.
But one of the changes that you're making based on the current pandemic situation that we're in is that you are going from really printing 2 newspapers. And if you're not familiar, obviously the Nettle Creek Gazette, we'll try to get this in here. That's not going to work there. And the Western Wayne News there. You're actually going to printing 1 newspaper. What is the reasoning behind that?
We have contemplated what the best way is to put out county news for a long time. We are Wayne County's weekly newspaper, local newspaper, and you can call it newspaper one or plural. But between the two, we have been delivering Wayne County's local news to every corner of the county. So, sometimes we've had to make hard choices about this relates to everybody in the county, but we don't want to duplicate in a second paper because some people get both, and it doesn't we want to make them appreciate the fact that they get different news coverage in different areas. Mm-hmm. So it had always been in the back of our minds, does it make sense to try to combine the papers? But when the COVID-19 situation came up, that's making everybody look at how to do business differently. There have been reasons to keep the papers separate, and there have been good reasons to put them together. But this is an opportunity for us, I think, to experiment. Everybody's, again, looking at how to do business different, and we're no exception. We're looking for ways to cut costs. We're supported by advertising, and nobody's advertising right now because nobody's open. And we don't know what that climate's going to look like when we go back either. When things finally do settle down and businesses start to open up and people go out again, I don't know how strong this is going to come back, how strong all of our local businesses. I hope we are powerful and strong, and I believe we will be stronger as a result of all this, but we don't know. Sure. So that was an opportunity not only for us to experiment, but to also save some costs by going to 1 paper for now.
You kind of stepped into the world of newspapers as a lot of larger companies were stepping out of them. How has that kind of made you think about this? Because there is a cost to doing business, particularly to doing the newspaper business, and you're finding that out even more so now, I think. Has it made you as an individual understand why some companies went digital only, and is that something that you consider doing?
Well, it certainly has made us think about that. And yes, we have thought about going digital only. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, when we had 4 different plans in 1 week, like everybody did because things were changing so fast, we actually told our stores that we were not going to be bringing single site copies out, and that because we were trying to keep our employees safe, and that we were probably going to go fully digital shortly after that. But we did keep the door open to printing 1 newspaper. We know that a lot of our readers are older and they're not computer tech savvy. So we knew that it would be a struggle for some of our readers to, for us to go completely online. We really had to weigh that with, okay, there's bankruptcy on one hand and there's, keeping things going digitally on the other. You don't get in the newspaper business to get rich, and that's the larger newspaper companies have certainly recognized that. But we've been blessed with a lot of really cool mentors. I said for me this is a God thing, and we've been given a lot of gifts along the way that I think a lot of people don't get. First of all, local news is something people are still buying newspapers for. They really do want to know what's going on around them, and they really want a reliable source with honesty and integrity, and so we have strived to be that. But our mentors have been some of the bigger newspapers. I was asked to join the board of the Hoosier State Press Association. And as a result of that, I have had just some amazing really big newspaper agencies around the state of Indiana and beyond who have helped us with, okay, this does make sense or this doesn't make sense. And historically, this is why we might have done this. And so you could look at it, but this might be an implication, this might be an outcome, an unintended consequence. So we've weighed all that. We've taken all those gifts and we have, we've said, this is what we think we're going to go ahead and try to print for now, and we may go digital in the future. And not to monopolize the conversation, but in the digital conversation, we also have been blessed by another gift of Chris Hardy. I don't know if all your viewers know Chris, but he's an amazing tech specialist in our area and has an amazing background that he's very humble about, in my opinion. But he came to us and said, I want to help you. And I have the digital skills, I have the technology skills. And he's actually working on a master's in journalism right now because he has such a strong interest in, just journalism and people getting good local news. So we have been so blessed with him basically creating a new website for us and saving us money along the way, making it more readable for people maybe who aren't tech savvy, but it's much easier to use. It's got new features and he continues to add features along the way. So, I mean, again, if you ever think you question, why you're where you are or what you're doing, you could just kind of look back and see all these things that have been laid out before you to make it easier. And I'm very confident that we're supposed to be doing this. So we'll see how this goes.
Our starting conversation, and might be our only one, we aren't quite sure yet, we'll see how far we go with this, is with Phil Stevenson, who is, you still have the title, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Superintendent of Centerville Abington Schools. He has been part of the Centerville Abington School District for some 48 years as a teacher and an administrator. There was no way we were going to get through this lineup of In Focus programs without talking to at least one superintendent. And if we were going to talk to one, we should talk to the dean. We should talk to the guy who has been here the longest out of any of our current superintendents and find out what's going on. I do have to add the disclaimer. Phil Stevenson is a member of the Whitewater Community Television Board of Directors, and I'm very glad that he is. As a matter of fact, I first met him when I was asked to serve on the United Way Board of Directors some years ago when he was a member of that board. And it was good to get to know him then. We're not best of friends by any stretch of the imagination, but I always enjoy the conversations that I have with him. So Phil, thank you very much for agreeing to do this conversation with me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I guess it's safe to say that if you look back on your first year, even as a superintendent, let alone as a teacher, and look at this year, the two things look completely different. Let's, before we go way off the rails here, as I can sometimes, talk a little bit about what this school year has been like from your perspective. I know when it started back in August, you never expected May and June to be what it is.
No, and when I started back in August, I hadn't decided I was going to retire either. I really thought I could maybe make it at least to 50 years. But, by October, I knew that I was running out of gas and that we need to get some younger ones in. And all the superintendents around are much younger than me. And when we hit December and we already had a snow day out, those snow days kill you. You're getting up around 4 in the morning, drive around at about 4:30, and this year particularly we had an early one in December, and then we had some others in January. And I'd already announced my retirement before Thanksgiving, but that really reaffirmed that it's time for me to get out. And I feel bad for my wife, who she has to get up too, because I'm up and running around, and you're texting all the various superintendents and calling them and trying to compare notes on what they have in their areas and make decisions. So then we turn around, finishing most of the bad weather in February, and then here March hits, and then we start having the virus. And we met with the health department, the superintendents did, and they said, well, with spring break coming up, we better sit out a couple of weeks after spring break and let the virus disappear. And the next week, they announced that we were going to be out. The governor announced we were going to be out even a week before our spring break. And so for 3 weeks there, we were kind of in a dead pattern. But then they announced we were going to start doing e-learning. We had already prepared to do e-learning, kind of like Richmond and Northeastern. Hagerstown was already doing it. We were going to miss 3 snow days, and then after that, we were going to do e-learning after those 3 days. So we were prepared. We'd already completed in-service for the teachers, getting ready for e-learning. The problem was trying to get to the elementary students, the not iPads, but their laptops. We use laptops down to grades 2. And so we got those distributed, and down at kindergarten and first and second grade at Rose Hamilton, they passed out paper packets. And that's what we've been doing since. The first thing we noticed, besides the e-learning process that we put in, was almost immediately we had to find a way to feed students. And we had never done that before. Centerville, we never were eligible to do it. You have to have more than 50% students on free and reduced lunch. We're about 40. So we worked with communities and schools to arrange for the churches to come up and get donations and all that. We gave extra food that we had in our cafeteria that we couldn't use, that you couldn't store for a long while. And then about 4 weeks later, the state loosened those requirements. And so we have volunteers come in, cook the food, and distribute it once a week up at the Centerville Christian Church in the evening. So that's worked out real well. Again, that was something new we had to think about, and it's been heavily used. We've been distributing a lot of food from our kitchens.
You're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're talking with Phil Stevenson, Superintendent of Centerville Abington Schools. Talk a little bit about, if you would, what got you started in teaching? Was it a person, an experience? And considering the way we hear, and this goes back to what we were just talking about having it hard to find teachers. How do you encourage young people to go into that profession right now? How do you give them that drive? How do you let them know that it is a profession, a career that they can go into, that they can be proud of? That's got to be maybe a little bit tougher in these days.
Yeah, I'll ask students, and I'll in the office or in the hallways, I'll say, the seniors, are you thinking about being a teacher? And it's hard to find anybody that will say yes. They would rather go into another field because, for a lot of people, it's money. But for teaching, you have to have really desire to enjoy students and enjoy your subject matter. And it's really a personal thing to be a teacher. A lot of students would rather go into another area that maybe earns more money and has more respect or that kind of thing. For me, I grew up on a farm and in a family business, so I was wanting to do that. But when I was a senior, we had a high school principal. His name was Carl Hilton, and I wanted to be like him. I was class president and worked with him, and I got to be principal for a day. I liked that. And so I started getting interested in wanting to be a teacher. So when I graduated, then I had changed my whole focus. And of course, a lot of small businesses like our family had were going to be shutting down anyway. But so I went to Ball State from the start wanting to be a teacher, and I wanted to be a principal. That was my ultimate goal. I never really wanted to be a superintendent. But so I started teaching at Centerville in 1972 in social studies, and we were going to change the world. And at that time, you didn't have too much regulation on how you taught or what you taught. And we had a good principal, Jim Howe, and he let us pretty much do what we wanted. And the whole school was almost all young because the World War II teachers were retiring by that time. And so learning was fun then. You didn't have all your testing going on, and there was a lot of things you could do. And so I taught for 13 years until 1985, and I knew our high school assistant principal was getting ready to retire, so I went back to school and got my license. In 85, I became assistant principal and was assistant principal for 8 years. And then I was lucky enough to follow when Jim Howe retired. He'd been there 26 years as principal. So I followed him, and I was there for 12 years as principal. And then they asked me to be superintendent. And so that's how I ended up being in there. Like I told you before the show, I had the privilege of being the Teacher Association president for 5 years. And that gave me a perspective of being on both sides of the fence. Right now, a lot of your administrators are administrators for 3 to 5 years, or teachers for 3 to 5 years, they become administrator. I taught for 13, and then 5 of those years I was Teacher Association president. And I got to know the issues of all the buildings from K through 12. And this helped me out a lot later when I was superintendent. I was also assigned to Rose Hamilton for 9 weeks in 1988 as principal, because that principal had a heart attack. And I enjoyed it at Rose Hamilton Elementary. I'm just not an elementary person. I was glad to get back to the high school. I'm not a big, fan of little kids. But anyway, I couldn't wait to get back to the high school kids. I really like the high school.
For people that are really trying to get involved with the city, are there certain resources that you really try to promote to people so that they can get a feel for what's going on, so that they can go, they can get help, they can do that type of thing? And is that type of thing also part of the website now that you've done some updates?
I think that aspect of what you're talking about is something that I want to build more into the website. Part of the need for that is to have a back-end database that we don't have. So I'm still exploring ways to do that in a sustainable way. But I think that right now, the first part of what you talked about, places where people can go for information and services, I hope that there are those places now on the website. It just depends on what they're looking for. So if they're looking for sanitation related things or cleanup related things, there's the Clean It Up page. And I can show that to you real quick if you want.
Yes. You mentioned that you were going to go back to that. So
I did, and then I failed to go back to it. So I'll share my screen real quick.
Okay.
So this arose from a need, and again, there's a couple different ways to get to this, but I'm on the living page under utilities and trash. It's also on the sanitation page, and I think a couple of code enforcement. We've tried to publish it a couple places, but this arose from a need for people in the community to try to, instead of separating out code enforcement and sanitation and cleanup and maintenance and all of those things, trying to do a kind of cross-departmental information resource that would highlight how citizens can be more proactive in their property maintenance. So this has been around for about
Wonderful.
Yep. So we have the solid waste collection map, and this is I think it's an iframe. I can't remember how I did it now. Yeah, it's an iframe. So you can click around and you can search by your address. So if we look at the city building, North 5th Street, we search it, and then we see we're in this yellow spot. So we zoom out, our pickup is Friday. And so it's a nice way to find that out. And then if you want to know when your recycling is, you click on this calendar and then you can find out when your recycling pickup is. So that's one of the first things, because it's when you move, I
know when your trash is picked up.
We get a lot of calls.
You move, you're creating a lot of trash.
Exactly. So much trash. And then these are the resources that relate to how do you keep your property clean. So we have the citizens request for action, special pickups, how they work, what they look like, the collection schedule, a whole page devoted to containers, the landfill, and then trash and recycling pickup, which is kind of a replication of the map. This container page, I just want to show you real quick because I was really excited about this page because I learned a lot in making this page. So I learned the difference between a Rosie roller and a Richie roller because, I mean, I knew the words, but I didn't know what they meant. And so we put pictures of them because a lot of people are visual, right? So put pictures and showed how to get one. And then you can reserve all these kinds of containers for your house and they will drop them off. And it shows how to do that. Simple what the fee is, how and what. And so you can get that, a 3 cubic yard container and a 14 cubic yard roll off, and just how it works and what to do. And so this is a really good way for those people who are like, I can't get to the landfill. Like I have health issues or I have transportation issues. I only have a smart car, call and get a container. And that's a really good way to still be a proactive property owner. So yeah, this page is a really good resource. And unfortunately, it hasn't gotten as much traffic as I would like to see. So I need to figure out a way to market it and get it out there a little bit better.
Well, I think you showing it will definitely help because, again, as I've moved around, and one of the reasons I reached out to you was I saw changes that were taking place in the website, and I thought they were good. I thought they needed to be highlighted. But this Clean It Up page is one that you showed me that I had not yet hit upon. So I think letting people know.
Thanks for watching this Best of in Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We didn't go in and carve up a lot of different shows. We just wanted to give you a sampling of some of the conversations that we've had. We also want to invite you, our audience, to make suggestions as to who we should talk to as we head into 2021. Send us an email, wctv@iue.edu. You can also drop us a line on our Facebook page. Also, if you're looking to see what's going on in the community, catch up to us on our other social media sites, whether it be Instagram or Twitter. Just connect with us. Let us know what you want to see, what you want to hear, and we'll try to make that happen. Thanks for watching In Focus. And as always, I wish you well.
This episode of In Focus has been made possible through the support of the Wayne County government.
Last year, I completed a marathon. When I had COVID this year, I couldn't even play the acoustic guitar. And that really concerned me, and that really made it hit home for me. If somebody like myself, who I would say was generally healthy, can get knocked down that far by COVID-19, the people who could have severe symptoms, I couldn't imagine how that could impact their body.